All right, everyone, we are going to get started. Everybody invited to this are people who signed up for the tool. So if you signed up under a newsroom, we've already onboarded you. And I am going to walk you through a demo of the tool. And then me and Caroline are happy to answer questions, help go over things again. It's a very simple tool. It's very easy to use. So the demo will not take long, and then we will be happy to answer questions, go through things again if anyone needs it, go over the playbook and any other questions or help that everybody would like. So for everybody in the room, you've been onboarded as editors to the tool, which means you should have gotten an email that says, set up your credentials so that you are able to launch the tool, which hopefully you can see. And so when you sign up and you launch your tool as an editor, this is what your screen will look like. So as an editor, you'll be able to go into Content Manager and see all the templates, the survey responses, the sources, everything in here. Your reporters, once you add them, will only be able to see send survey. So we created this to be as easy to use, as low lift for reporters as possible, which means all they will see when they log in is send survey, and then they will be able to look at the sources and responses who they specifically sent it to. But you as an editor will be able to see all your reporters, the templates, all of the source responses, and everybody that your reporters are sending surveys to. So everyone who is on this call was added as an editor, which means you will have the ability to look at everything for your newsroom and add reporters. Okay, so I'm going to go through each option here. If you have questions, throw them in the chat box and I will read them on the side, but Caroline will also be looking at them. So when you go into Content Manager, email template is what gets sent out to your readers, your sources, when you send them the survey. So it's a very basic template. If you do not want to change it, you don't have to. If you would like to change it, you can. So we have set up something so that if you just want to load this tool and immediately start using it, it automatically populates the template with hello from our team, puts in your newsroom title. Thank you for working with our journalists. It gives a little background on we're inviting you to complete a survey to help us. Everything is optional for your sources. So their actual information, their demographic information will not be linked to their names unless they wish it to be. So we have that in the template, that everything is optional. And it is to help you better serve and be in touch with your communities. So that is the standard template. You can change it, you can edit it, or you can just leave it. Okay. Mine says from RJI survey team because RJI is my newsroom. So it would say your newsroom survey team. Now the form template is the actual survey that we've built out. So your questions will not be editable because we did months of research to the best language, the most inclusive language, the correct words to use, terms to use. If you would like us to change anything, if you would like us to customize any questions, if you would like specific 1 or 2 questions for your newsroom, me and Caroline have the super admin access and we are able to do that. We have locked them just to keep best practices in place for newsrooms who are learning to do this kind of survey so that you can best serve your communities. But we are happy to have conversations with you about what best fits for your newsroom. There will also be an option in the future if you want to be a part of a collaboration and share information with other newsrooms on how it's going with your responses in comparison to the responses from other communities, because you will be using the same questions. You will have data that you compare, you will be able to opt into that kind of experience. It will not be, your data will not be used. None of that will be utilized without your knowledge. So we will be able to offer you that kind of learning from each other with other newsrooms who are also using this tool. As of today, we have onboarded, I think, about 90 different newsrooms across the country. There are a few in other countries as well. So there are a ton of newsrooms who are going to be trying this out and seeing what works and what doesn't work for their communities. So next is newsroom. You guys will only see your newsroom. If you are part of a bigger chain or something and you want multiple newsrooms, we could figure out a way to do that. But as of now, it is just your newsroom that you are an editor of. So everybody who has editor privileges in your newsroom will be able to see all the templates and information. Everybody who's a reporter will only have the privileges to see their sources and their responses. Under source, you will see here, I'm in a testing environment so that you guys don't see people's actual information. So when you send it out, every time you send out a survey, this is where all the sources will be. You'll be able to see the name, the email that was sent, whether or not they answered it. So if they filled it out, it'll say true. If they didn't fill it out, it'll say false. And that'll help you so that you can send reminders or nudge the reporter if they're talking to that source again to say, hey, did you see our survey? We would love for you to respond to that. Survey responses, you will be able to see all the responses from your sources, and then you will be able to download the CSV and actually see the data, make it into visualizations for your newsrooms. At some point, if you want to compare it to another newsroom or you're working with multiple newsrooms, you can compare and contrast from that data information. Okay, so, and then as an editor, you will also be able to send surveys. So if your reporters don't have time or they forget, but you have the email of a source, you will be able to put in the source's name, put in the source's email, and then send them a survey. Okay, so that will be an option. Now, if I wanted to send the survey again with the same information, if you hit send survey, you will get a little pop-up and your reporters will get this too. A source with that email address has already received the survey. Do you want to send it again? This allows you to send it a second time if you really want to, as like a reminder, or if the source says, hey, I didn't see it, it ended up in my junk, or I accidentally deleted it, you're able to send it again without the system blocking you. But this is also a nice feature because that way, if you're in a small community and sources overlap, your reporters will know if a survey has already been sent to a source and they will not send it again. If the source has already filled out the survey, this pop-up will say they have already filled this out and not allow you to send another one. Okay, so there are barriers in place to help us not spam people and to help us only contact sources when appropriate, even if that source is working with multiple reporters or multiple teams. So you can say confirm, okay, that source has already filled out the survey, so then it won't send them another one. So that is in place to help us not annoy our lovely communities and only send them things when necessary. Now, after 6 months or a year or whatever reason you want to completely clear out all the responses you've gotten, start a new survey, add new questions, whatever the reason is, you can go into survey responses, you can delete responses, and once you delete them from your system, or you can delete the source directly here. Once you delete them, it'll then reset for that particular source and you can resend the survey. So if you redo your survey at some point, you add a new question, you fix a typo, whatever is going on, you can delete the source from your system so that it allows you to send them a new survey for a new reason. All right, so as you can see, very basic tool. The only other option that you'll really need to know is if you go to settings, users, and then as editors, you will have the ability to add reporters to your team. Now, reporters will not have this ability, so they'll go here and see nothing. But as an editor, you will be able to add a reporter. So you would put in the reporter's name, their email. We do have a little note here, please use lowercase. For some reason, uppercases don't work. You add your newsroom so that, and then you add them editor or reporter. So if you are an editor and you want all the editors in your newsroom on this tool, utilizing this, working with their reporters, you'll add them all as editors. If it's a reporter who's just out in the field sending surveys to sources, you'll add them as a reporter. So you can pick whichever option with the permissions and abilities that you want that person to have. Invite user, probably because it already exists. Want to make up an email. And then when you invite user, it'll send an automatic email, but you can also copy this link and then send it to that person in your Slack channel or a text message or an email, so that you have the ability to send them the registration, but they will also get an automatic email that says you are ready to set up your credentials for the system and start using this tool. Okay. And then you will be able to see if your reporters have actually signed up and are utilizing it. So if they are logging in, you will see active. And if they are not, then you will see inactive. So you will be able to see the user status based on if they have actually signed up and if they are using the tool. Okay. So that is our tool in a nutshell. It's made for small to medium newsrooms. It's made to be very accessible and easy to use. Doesn't have a ton of bells and whistles at this point because we wanted to make it as straightforward and easy as possible. But for anybody who utilizes it, who tries it in their newsrooms, we would love to hear feedback. So I may be emailing you in a few months and saying, we'd love to hear if you're using it, what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what you would love to have added. What would make your life easier, so that we can think about future iterations of this tool. Now, if you are completely new to source tracking, we have also created a source tracking playbook, which no pressure to use, but we've created this to provide extra guidance and context to you getting your newsroom on board. So if you're someone who really wants to start source tracking in your newsroom, but you're like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to get my boss on board. I don't know how to get my reporters to understand that this is important. We have created this playbook to sort of walk you through different ways, different challenges, and different conversations that you can have in your newsroom to help you. So these are the typical challenges we found through our research and our newsrooms that we have interviewed. And we have a page for each one with how to get buy-in among staff, how to make time for this. Okay, a big thing that we teach is that you cannot just pile source tracking work on top of other work. You need to really think about what are you taking off of your journalist's plate, or what can we shift around to make space for this work so they do not see it as just one extra thing that they have to do every day. So really thinking about how you will help make time for this important work and how you will then put it into the larger DEIB strategy of your newsroom. So challenge number 4 is no big picture. So source tracking is a great first step. It's a great any step, but it does need to be part of larger conversations in your newsroom about how to actually use the data to implement change in how you do your journalism, how you speak to your communities, how you cover your communities. So that's what this playbook is for, to help you get these different aspects of source tracking to work, to get buy-in among your staff, to help even think about who's going to be those thought leaders in your newsroom, who's going to help manage the work, who's going to help you make time. So the playbook is at rjionline.org. And I will also put the bit.ly in this chat, and I'll tweet it out and email it to everybody too. But for the actual tool, you've all been onboarded, or I can see in the chat that Caroline is currently onboarding you. And you can sign in, play around with it, and we are happy to answer questions. Okay, so it looks like there was some people we are onboarding. Are there any questions about the tool or the playbook that we can answer right now? Yeah, no problem. So you can also, if you ever lose it, you can go to rjionline.org, go to applied research, source tracking playbook. How can we see the data we collect? Okay, so when you're in the tool, I'll share my screen again. When you're in the tool, you can go to your data. So I go to survey response, and you can see it two different ways. So you can click on the individual and you can see what they chose, right? Prefer not to disclose, man or woman, over 65. So you can see the individual answers if you're just looking for a specific source survey, or you can download your CSV. It downloads to your computer, and then you open it up in Excel or Numbers or whatever you use, and it'll give you a basic CSV file with a table that you can then import into charts, visualizations, whatever it is that you're looking to create charts or reports. So, okay, great question. If a source doesn't have an email address, so if a source doesn't have an email address, when the reporter goes to send survey, they can put in the source's name or whatever they want to call themselves, let's say, and then if they don't have an email, the reporter can just leave it blank and hit send survey. And then what happens is that the reporter can open up the survey on their phone or on their computer, wherever they're talking to the source, and they can fill it out with the source right there. Okay, so that's especially useful. We had a newsroom ask for this feature because of the unhoused population. They said, hey, we're out in the field. They're happy to give us this information, but they don't have an email address. So in this way, your reporter can stand there or hand their phone to the person. They can fill out the survey, or they can text them if they want to text them the link to the survey. And then that person can still be a part of your source data, even if they don't have an email address. Okay, so the demographic data can be attached to people, so it depends on the source and what they want to give you. A lot of people are comfortable with giving their name connected to their demographic data, but they are able to, even if you don't have the person's name, you will still be able to see that you are mostly talking to white male over 65 sources. So even if it isn't attached to the name, you will still know this person is a source, and you will be able to see based on the demographics who you are talking to see those biases. You don't need the person's name to understand the breakdown. So
yeah, Kat, and I can add to that.
Yes,
like
go for it.
So I think one answer is, we've seen very few of our sources have opted out of having their name attached. It's nice to have that as an option, especially for like as we think about this from a data security standpoint, but the vast majority of people are totally fine attaching their name to this information. But in addition, so Kat, ran through the survey as it is. We've put a lot of thought and a lot of work into how we've worded those questions, especially about race and ethnicity and gender identity. However, the tool gives us the options to customize survey questions in addition to what we have preset to the newsroom. And so Chalkbeat, for example, we're in education. We write about education, and we have a question that's basically like, how do you most identify education expert, teacher, parent, student? We list a couple other options I won't go through. And then it also adds, an other category for folks to write in if you want that. And so I would say, other newsrooms have opted to add something similar. I think it's a really smart question to add. Obviously, we couldn't add one question to rule them all because, newsrooms have different missions and they talk to different types of people. But that is one thing to consider with your survey is you can add a how do you identify, and then that'll help you get to that, get to measuring that, right? As opposed to solely relying on somebody's name and then automatically knowing who that person is, right? That's easy with the mayor, but it may be harder with academics your reporters occasionally talk to, etc.
Yeah. So me and Caroline have the ability to add a custom question. We do recommend not adding too many because the longer your survey is, the less people fill it out. We have found, but adding a question, like if you're specifically looking at the expertise of your sources, or we could add a question that says, what is your professional title, or what is your role? Something like that. Matt, to your question, we do not currently have a way to create teams within the newsroom. Yes, we do not have a way to create teams within a newsroom. We could create them as separate newsrooms, and then you could compare and contrast. But right now we don't have a way to break it down into teams, simply because this was originally built for like very small teams where you just want to compare and contrast everyone. That said, you can see which reporters are sending which surveys. So you will be able to see, like, the reporter on the features beat, these are the sources they talk to, or sent the survey to, and the reporters on the breaking news beat, these are the sources they sent it to. So you will be able to connect the reporter to the source, and the data that's coming back. The typical completion rate, Caroline, it was.
Yeah, so we this is a great question, Naomi. So in our research, we looked at there are kind of like two main paths here for source auditing work. And this is a generalization. There are a lot of different types, but like a lot of them fall under these two categories. One is you, as a newsroom, require your journalists to interview the source live and input those answers into a form or a spreadsheet or some place where you're tracking that. But it's the onus is on the reporter to ask live, right? Or to ask at the end of the interview to follow up. Maybe you etc. So kind of that onus is on the reporter to ask and collect that data and put it somewhere. Category one. Category two, what this tool is based off, which is a more email-based automatic system. The non-automatic way is you have a Google form or some free tool like Airtable, or it could be free. Airtable isn't always free. And you send it to the source directly, they fill it out, or you have some sort of automated system. And so the onus is still in part on the journalist for sure, or the editor, but the bulk of the work falls to the source to like take the time to fill it out. And what we saw, newsrooms who were willing to share with us their data on that, both categories had about like a 50 to 60% completion rate, which really surprised us. Like we felt like the first category maybe was going to have a much higher completion rate, considering it's so much more work. But we didn't, that's not what we learned from that kind of investigative reporting process that we did at the start of this. And Wisconsin Public Radio, which has done this style of source auditing, what we're showing you here for the longest, would hover in the like 55 to 60% completion rate of their sources. Yeah, thank you for the question. I see we're getting to some others in the chat.
Yeah, so Matt asked if one source talks to multiple reporters. My response was, that's what those reminders are for. So like if I were to talk to a source and then Caroline talks to them tomorrow and me and Caroline don't talk to each other, Caroline would be able to see that I already sent the survey and the source already filled it out. So you should not be spamming your sources with 8 surveys, and there won't be data to be cleaned up. So the safeguards are in place to prevent us from doing that to our sources. All right, any other questions at this time? If not, I believe you are all onboarded under the tool. If you're somewhere right now where you can't check, send us an email. If not, you have my email and Caroline's. So we're happy to onboard you, talk about custom questions, answer any questions you don't feel comfortable asking publicly right now. We're here to help. We want people to use this tool. We want to get feedback. So please do feel free to reach out. Tell us what you need. We'd love to chat with you and see how it's working for you.
Yeah, and I'll add, I have definitely spent some time with newsrooms who want more of their editors onboarded. Maybe more of their editors have really specific questions, and so like us sending them this recording wouldn't help. In that case, I'm very happy to come meet with your staff, very happy to meet with you one-on-one, to show you some more ins and outs or answer any more questions. And then we're also very happy to meet with your reporters. Most newsrooms that we've onboarded so far have chosen to start with a small group of reporters, which we would strongly recommend. There's a lot of reasons we'd recommend that, but as with anything else, you can get started, you can learn, and then as you spread it, hopefully you can spread buy-in among your newsroom, and hopefully you can spread a system that works well for everybody. So starting small can be really helpful, which is to say, you know, I've met with newsrooms, smaller groups of reporters, onboarded them, answered their questions, trained them, and we're really happy to offer that to anyone who wants to take advantage. But thanks for spending your time with us today.
Yes, thank you so much. Please feel free to reach out and let us know how it's going.